All right, let's finish up our Illustrator icon tutorial series with our last icon, this little house. Okay, as usual, let's start by zooming in, making sure we're in the right application, and spacebar, command, and click and drag to get in nice and close. And we can see that this one is it's going to be interesting. It looks like we have part of a rounded square to make up the body of the house, but it's been trimmed off a little bit. We have a rectangular door, a rounded rectangular chimney, and then we have this roof line that looks like it might be constructed from round capped lines or something like that. So let's take a look and get started. So I think the first thing I'm going to start off with is the body of the house, sort of the big square. So I'm just going to go to my rectangle tool and come down here to the corner, click, and I'm holding my shift key down, and I'm going to drag that up until that's just about where it needs to be. And as always, my stroke and fill are left over from my last tutorial, so I'm going to change that to a no or null fill and a black stroke so that I can see what I'm doing here, right? So with that drawn, I'm going to go ahead and already I'm going to kind of pull in the corners here so that it matches these little bottom two guys. All right, so how do I get this shape right here, right? I mean, there are a lot of different ways I could do it, but I'm going to show you how this would go down in my sort of mental process, right? Is I'm going to go ahead and go back to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to just create a square, and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees by coming out here to the corner and then holding my shift key down and rotating it 45 degrees. And then I'm going to select my first square and make it a key object and align those, align their horizontal centers, right? So they're aligned straight up and down. And then I'm going to pull this guy down until it sort of matches the roof line. Okay, so now you can see how maybe something like this would come together. All right, so with these two shapes selected now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to my Pathfinder tool, and I'm going to go to my third option, which is intersect. Okay, so when I click on that, you can see that I'm left with this nice little body of the house there, right? So before we go too much further, I'm just going to go ahead and notch out this doorway because I'm sort of a perfectionist. I'm going to go ahead and align those. And then I'm going to go back to my Pathfinder and do a minus front. Now, because I created this doorway most recently, I know that's in front. So when I punch that, that's going to punch out the way I want, right? Okay, so now we're just left with a couple of items. We've got to figure out this roof line, and we've got to figure out this chimney, right? So how are we going to do this roof line? Well, here's one way. So what I'm going to do, I know that this is a 45-degree angle, right? Because this shape was created using a square that had been rotated 45 degrees. So I'm going to do something similar. I'm just going to go ahead and using my smart guides, I'm going to Option Shift Draw from the center of this other object until I'm, have a reasonable size square. And just to be extra sure, I'm going to make sure that it's aligned with our house shape. And it is. And then what I'm going to do is deselect. So now I just have the outer circle or outer square selected. I'm going to come out here to a corner again, and I'm going to rotate. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I'm going to come out here and rotate that and hold my shift key down so it's 45 degrees. And then I'm going to kind of pull this down into position. And now you can see that this line pretty much lines up with the roof, right? It's too big, so let's figure out how we can change that, right? I could just come here to this bottom point and scale that up until it's just about right. All right. Then I can go to my direct select tool and I can select this segment. Oh, undo. Let's see. I'm going to deselect and then reselect. So I'm just selecting this path. And then I'm going to come down here and select this point. And there I have this line, which lines up with the roof. And then sort of like we did in the icon above here and in this icon over here, we're going to make that line thick to the point where it matches up with the thickness of that roof. So I'm just going to go up here and make that stroke bigger until it's just about the right size. And it looks like it is at 8 points. If we click on our stroke editor now, we can change the cap to a rounded cap, and we can change the corner to a rounded corner, right? And so now that looks the way we want it to in terms of its size and shape and position. But we want to get that kind of hollowed out look shown below here, which is going to be the view that I use when I evaluate your tests. So how do we do that? Well, we did it in those other cases, and that's by going up here with the object selected and going to Object, Path, Object, Path, and we're going to outline the stroke. All right, so there we go. We've got that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the stroke and fill, and there's a quick way of doing that, and that is just to come over here and reverse those. So again, I can see what I'm looking at. And now all we have to do is add this chimney, and that should be pretty straightforward. So I'm going to zoom in here and just take my rectangle tool and starting over here. Now, it looks like it lines up with this edge of the house. So I can use my smart guides and make sure that that continues to do that. If I finish this the way it should, it looks like my rectangle kind of overlaps here a little bit, but that's fine. I'm going to eyedropper my roof so I can see what I'm doing here. And now all I have to do is bring this little one individual point up here so it falls sort of within this shape, and I'll do that with my direct select tool, and I'll select that anchor point, and then holding the shift key so it stays in line, I'm just going to drag that up. Doesn't really matter where it is as long as it's straight up and then within this shape. I can do that. Now to get the little rounded corners up here, I can just select each of these two anchor points and then do my sort of radius control by pulling in, and there we go. All right, so the last thing we have to do for the shapes anyway is to select these, go back to our Pathfinder tool, and unite them. All right, so that's pretty good. Then we're going to go ahead and change the fill to white, and change our stroke to null. And then the last thing we're going to do is our background, and you know this always gets a little confusing, but we're just going to go with the ellipse tool, and we'll find a rough center here using our smart guides, and I'm going to Option Shift drag a nice big circle out here and kind of nudge that up into place. And then I'm going to zoom out and select all of these objects, deselect the background and then kind of pull that out of position. Select the icon background and go to my eyedropper tool and sample the background color here. Then, because this is the most recent object I've created and it's in front, I've got to send that to the back, and I do that by right-clicking on it, going to Arrange, and Send to Back. All right, so you can see that that wasn't too hard. So I'm going to go ahead and group those and move those into place. I'll zoom out a little bit. And voila. So there we go. There are the 6 icons that we were able to create without too much hassle. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my guide layer here. So that's what we're looking for in those icons. Not any, we're looking for matching colors, for nice proportions, things evenly spaced and aligned and distributed the way they're supposed to. Nice smooth lines for our flame, but probably most importantly, when I do the Command Y to get to keyline mode, you can see that all of these are clean. It's not just sort of a random looking stack of shapes. And the reason why I feel that this is important is because, one, it illustrates your ability to use your Pathfinder and or Shapefinder tools, which are important. But also, if you were creating this and you wanted to apply effects like drop shadows or embosses or inner glows or things like that, they're going to behave totally differently with a well-constructed compound object or a series of compound objects like these, rather than just sort of a stack of shapes. So I hope that this series was helpful for you guys, and that it helped get you through your Illustrator skills test. So thanks again for watching.